Why don't you just go back to playing Jaws Unleashed?
Hello everyone and welcome to the 22nd episode of the RFGeneration Playcast. I'm GreyGhost81 and in this episode, Rich, Steven, Floyd, and I are joined by special guest Doug, better known as Nupoile on the forum, to come together to discuss two of Nintendo's greatest titles of all time. If you played Nintendo consoles growing up, were you into Super Mario Bros. Games? Which one was your favorite? In this episode, the five of us will discuss Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World. They were released years apart on different consoles, but there exists a rivalry between devoted fans of these titles, and which game your dear hosts will side with may surprise you. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter, where our handle is @RFG Playcast. You can also listen to the show on Podbean and iTunes. Most importantly, don't forget to log on to rfgeneration.com to join our playthroughs and discuss the amazing games we play together. Thank you as always for listening, and now, on with the Playcast. So I think I have a criticism of Nintendo that's very common, that they repackage and re-release their games so much. But it turns out I've bought Super Mario Bros. 3 times, I think.
Sucker. Not
counting however many times the actual cartridge has passed through my hands. I actually have it on I have an NES copy, I have Super Mario All-Stars, and I have it on the Wii Virtual Console. And I know I paid money for it. I didn't get it as like a coupon or anything, or somebody gave me a code for it. So this is one of those games that I was surprised what a hard time I had with it. And Rich, I think you and I have a very controversial opinion of this game.
Probably so. I mean, I think once you probably hear a little bit of our histories with the game, or some of our explanations about probably why we feel the way we do about the game, you'll understand better. I'm not saying you won't send us hate mail, but you'll definitely maybe sort of understand what we're talking about when we discuss the game. But and definitely, I'm gonna stay positive and let people talk, and it's a good game. It really is a good game.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess the best way to say it's not for me, So, but it's a good game.
I kind of agree, man. And just so our listeners know, we're joined as usual by Steven and Floyd, but we have a special guest with us today. His name is Doug, and he's better known as Nupoile on RF Generation, but we're going to call him Doug at his request today. Mm-hmm. And he was generous enough to share a lot of thoughts on the forum thread for our games this month, which are Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World. But yeah, Doug, welcome to the show, and please let us know a little bit about your feelings. Get us started on the conversation here with Super Mario 3.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. We got this game back when it was brand new, and this was one of the few games we had for a long time. I don't know, a long time as a kid, maybe. For the first couple of years anyways, it seemed like forever. But my family loved playing this game. I remember this. We had Super Mario Brothers 1 and 2 and then 3 and Metroid and a couple others, but I remember those 4 being really big at my house. And I liked playing them, and my brother and sister liked playing them, and my dad did too, and we all kind of got together and played this often. So
Awesome.
have good memories of it.
Well, that's awesome, and that's one of the reasons we wanted you on the show. You kind of shared your story on the threads, on our playthrough threads, and just really impressed with your history with the game, and we definitely wanted as Shawn and I mentioned, we're a little critical of the game, so we definitely wanted some positivity about the game on the show. Not to, I mean, I think Steven really likes the game as well, and Floyd, but it's just kind of good to kind of balance that out and just see what everyone's sort of personal history is with the game.
Right, and speaking of good personal histories with the game, I want to go over the participant list for this playthrough. Absolutely. I mean, we talked about it on the show, and we've talked about it behind the scenes, that when we changed the format of the community playthrough for 2016, going to one game, notwithstanding the fact that we're doing 2 games this month, but it's still in the spirit of what we're trying to do, we decided to really cash it in and pick games that people couldn't say no to. That's why we're playing 2 of the greatest platformers of all time, 2 of the biggest Nintendo games of all time, arguably the 2 best Mario games of all time. So we had, I'm pretty sure, the most participants we've ever had on a month playthrough. So here's the long list of our friends who were kind enough to take the time to play the games with us. So we got Addicted, Beauchamp, our very own Disposed Hero, Dougley 007, Father Jack, who's been doing a lot of awesome participation in the playthroughs as of late. We have Fleach, myself, High Wind, Ikaraniku, good old Jerry Greenwood. We got Neo Magic Warrior. We got nupoile, guest on the show today, Doug. We have Pam, Project Nintendo, Russ Lyman, singlebanana, Shaggy, and Watts WC.
Wow.
Now, Rich, Pam and Watts WC are a team, right?
Yeah. They're a couple. They're friends of the show on Twitter. Befriended them on there and talked to them quite a bit. They're members of the Cartridge Club, but they also have been interested in playing some games with us, and we're really happy to have both of them joining us for these playthroughs.
Yeah, that's awesome. We got some good crossover with other people who are trying to, do their thing in the gaming scene. It's really cool.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's our big list. Way to kick off our playthrough in 2016 with some smashing titles and a good group of participants. So I guess we could really kind of dive into Super Mario Brothers 3 here. Mm-hmm. It was originally released for the Famicom in 1988, but it came to the States in February of 1990 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. And it's seen a bunch of re-releases throughout the years, as I was saying. And I also just remembered, I believe I have the Game Boy Advance re-release. So that makes 4 iterations of this game that I own.
You must really like this game.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Which this is very strange for you, Shawn, because you're the kind of guy, you're like, I'm cleaning up my collection. I'm trying to go, pretty much all digital, or really limit like what you're collecting and stuff, and you've got so many copies of this game.
Yeah, it is strange. Well, I do have it digitally, so I guess that counts. But yeah, so the game was developed by the legendary Nintendo Entertainment Analysis and Development, or NEAD, or NEA as some people call it, and produced by Shigeru Miyamoto and directed by himself and Takashi Tezuka. Sorry, I got a little tongue-tied there, just fact-checking. So we all know, let's get the elephant out of the room, which is that this game was in that movie The Wizard, right, which is basically a commercial for Nintendo, and most importantly, Super Mario Brothers 3. Did anybody take the time to rewatch this movie for the playthrough?
No. I mean, I remember it vividly. I mean, I watched it as a kid, and I watched it. I went to the theater to see it before the game came out, and so it's a very vivid movie but doesn't quite hold up great, but still not a bad film.
I don't think I've ever seen it, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's worth seeing. Yeah. I think now it falls into the so bad it's good kind of category, but definitely
I've seen
worth
reviews
seeing.
like Nostalgia Critic, and I think maybe AVGN talked about it, so I'm familiar with it, but I've never actually sat down and watched it.
Right.
As big of a as big of a fan as I am of watching movies, I also did not go back and watch this movie, but I didn't see it when it first came out. I somehow knew that it wasn't going to be good even as a kid, but I've seen it a couple times since then, and yeah, it's a thing. It exists.
Yeah, it was a great hype.
Floyd, have you ever seen The Wizard?
No, I haven't. And I guess it should be mandatory research for this playthrough.
I think you can watch the whole thing on YouTube. So I mean, it
probably is on YouTube.
It would be worth checking out just to see what you think and to kind of get a little backstory into, because like Shawn said, I mean, it really is basically an advertisement for this new game, and I can't deny that helped sell copies of the game.
Yeah, I do remember. I don't remember if I saw the movie as a kid or if it was just in a trailer, but I do vividly remember the part of the game where Mario kicks the shell into the cluster of golden blocks, and the shell is just kicking back and smashing them all like very rapidly. Mm-hmm. And at the time, that was mind blowing to see, because you couldn't. That was the first time. Like in Super Mario 2, you could pick up stuff, but this was totally different. To pick up a shell and kick it, and it's smashing around on everything like a pinball machine. It was really cool looking. Mm-hmm. I can't remember if that was in the trailer or in the actual movie, but that's like a very vivid like scene in my mind. Yeah. Seeing that. Yeah,
that was a nice addition to the game. I mean, that's a great point. There's several additions to this game. That really like are things that you see throughout the series as you move on, and I would say Super Mario Brothers 3 is great in that it's sort of a turning point in the Mario series and what it will become.
Yeah, it definitely is. This game really innovated on basically Super Mario Brothers 1. We all know Super Mario Brothers 2 was a westernized version of a game called Doki Doki Panic. I mean, I think anybody who knows anything about video games knows that already. I played a lot of Super Mario Brothers 2 recently, and I think it's a really good game. I think it's an underrated game. I think there's a little bit of revisionist history that kind of sweeps that game under the rug, but I think it's really a lot of fun. But for Super Mario Brothers 3, they went back to the original Mario mythology with the princess getting kidnapped and Bowser, and they expanded on the fiction of the worlds. And this is the first game where you see the Toad characters as characters. There's the different Koopa kids are introduced in this one, and there's a non-linear progression system where you move Mario on an overworld map, basically, which has been used ever since. And this is the first game that it was used in. So I wonder, I mean, if we could just talk about that, how you guys felt at the time or how you feel now. How does it hold up? The progression system, the non-linearity of it. Anybody, just take it away.
Yeah, this was sort of the first time that you could. You basically were given options in the game where you could, not every time, but you could actually skip levels or choose your path to go a different way. And instead of using like a warp, which there are warps in this game as well with the warp whistles, but it was, kind of one of the first times that, you could say, oh, well, I can skip the third level here and go around it, so you had a bit of leniency with your options in the game, and that was it was different, and it was kind of nice to be able to do that.
Right. Doug, when you were a kid, did was it like mind blowing that you were on this world map moving Mario around? I know you posted some cool pictures of having fun with the maps and all the little details that you noticed. If you wouldn't mind talking about that a little, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I remember thinking that this was a pretty fun mechanic. When I was that age, I wasn't so into. I don't even know if I was aware of them, RPGs and stuff like that. So I think there were probably things on the some sort of computer or something that probably had an overworld map or the ability to skip levels. But as far as something on Nintendo, on something that I had in my house, this was probably the first time that occurred to me, and it was a really neat mechanic. I remember studying the little pictures. I think Super Mario Brothers 3 was talked about in Nintendo Power, which we had a subscription to, and just seeing that was something in the game was great.
Yeah, and you still have your strategy guide that you posted some pictures of.
It's a little rough.
It does look a little rough. Yeah, actually, so my sister was over here yesterday, and I had it out because of the playthrough, and she's like, "Oh, I remember this," and she
cool.
flipped through it too. So, the rest of my Nintendo Power collection doesn't look anything like that strategy guide. Most of the rest of it's in pretty good shape, but we use that strategy guide a lot. And she flipped through it to the part where there's the matching game solution picture.
Oh, right.
And she's like, "Oh yeah, I was looking for this, and I remember this part." And so, yeah, even my sister, who doesn't really play games, still was excited about it.
I could have really used that chart because I'm awful at the matching game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it only gives you 2 chances. So
Yeah.
if you get it wrong,
I was watching the playthrough you had put up there, and I saw you go through the matching game, and I was like, "Oh man, he just picked random ones." And
Yeah, pretty much.
the first time.
I'm not good at
Yeah.
it. No.
Yeah, so every time
Well,
it's all the same. The matching game is all the same items you end up getting. Like there's 8 different boards, and each board you can get the same. Once you match them up, you get the same set of items. It's just they're scrambled in what order there is. So
Yeah.
You always end up with 6 more items in your inventory, which is something that, like, later in the game you have to kind of balance. Well, I'm going to get 6 items, but it's going to push some out. So
Yeah,
Right.
I started noticing
how do I
that.
manage that?
I thought it was the inventory space was infinite until I noticed that they were being overridden. So I had to kind of start using up some of the ones I didn't like so much just to get them out of there and clear up some space.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just in case there's someone out there that has never played this game before and has decided to listen to our podcast, one of the
spoilers.
one of the things about Super Mario 3 is that you can collect power-up items to use outside of the actual levels, and you can use those on your character. Like, you can give yourself firepower or like P-wings to fly through the level, a mushroom to grow if you're small. And you can do that before you actually enter the level. So that was a pretty neat addition to the game. And I don't know, I'm kind of racking my brain, and I haven't played any of the newer games, but is that something that continued on through the series?
No, not
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't have. Basically, they took the Super Mario World model, which is you can have 1 item in reserve that you carry from level to level. At least,
which is nice.
'Cause I was playing new Super Mario Brothers for the DS, kind of like as part of playing these 2 games. I went back and played a bunch of other Mario games too, so I can, expound upon what was going on, since then or whatever. But yeah, they basically followed the Super Mario World model after that, which is 1 item in reserve. Mm-hmm. So the whole, like, having an inventory is like kind of only a Super Mario Brothers 3 thing. And it was, like you said, new at the time, and that was really cool to load up on raccoon tails and P-wings, and like y'all were saying, like, get rid of those stars because they're kind of useless. But yeah, I gotta go ahead, Doug.
Oh, the Wandering Hammer Brothers. That's where you use the stars. The Wandering Hammer Brothers.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've never thought about doing
that's
that
a
before.
Yeah.
good place to waste them.
Yep.
Then you can just,
Wow.
good idea. Good strat, bro.
See, that's what happens when you're talking to someone who only had 6 games for a while, and this was one of the best ones. So
No, that's me. That
Yeah,
was
no,
me
that's-
too. I can talk your ear off about TNC surf designs.
Oh, Lord. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So I just want to, real quick, since Doug brought it up, for those who don't know, we do have a YouTube channel, and you can listen to the show there, but we have also been putting up playthroughs of our games that Rich has recorded and Steven is recording. We talked a little bit about Rich's Contra run, and Steven put up a full game run of Super Mario Bros. 3. So just a reminder, our YouTube channel is not just for a way to listen to the show. We have other videos up there too, so check it out and subscribe.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, just as far as like my personal history with this game in particular, I don't remember like owning it as a kid, or like, I know I did, you know what I mean? But I remember more Super Mario Brothers 1 and 2. One of my cousins had Super Mario 2, and we played it like crazy. Maybe that's why I like it so much. Like, I have more of a nostalgia for that game than I do Super Mario 3. So, World, when we talk about Super Mario World, that's a totally different ball game for me. But
So you don't have a
Mario
distinct
3.
history that you remember?
No, nothing. Nothing super special or nostalgic or playing it with anybody special.
Okay.
So
How about you?
I don't know. Go ahead, Floyd, Steven.
Yeah. What about you guys? Do you have a history with this game?
Kind of unfortunately, I don't have a history with this game. I had a Sega Genesis growing up, so I have more history with the Sonic games.
Okay.
But the first Mario game that I ever played was World.
Okay.
And then I think the first Mario game that I ever beat was Super Mario 64.
Okay.
So I kind of came in to the series sort of in the middle. But now having this chance to go back and play Super Mario Bros. 3 was really cool. And like, I can see why it's so near and dear to people. It's, these two games are really similar. But I guess each thing has its own sort of charming little things that attract people one way or the other.
Yeah. And for those who don't know and don't listen to the show regularly, Floyd, you're 25 now? Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm 25.
Okay. So you definitely, like, this, you wouldn't have been around when this came out, or you would have been very, very young, right?
Yeah, exactly. I would have been just being born when this came out.
Right. So that explains a lot as far as why you might not have played the game until later on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
yeah, I think if you didn't, if you weren't around when this game, or you're too young or too old for that matter, when this game came out, I think the major point of it was this was kind of like the culmination of all of Nintendo's design, aesthetic, and power on the NES. It was just such a a leap above almost everything else up to that point, at least all of the major games. So
Yeah.
as far as looks and sounds, if you compare it to like the earlier games on the Famicom or the NES, it's quite a step above them, and it's quite impressive.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I was able to pick up on that. It's really cool how you have that like traditional Mario mechanic of like the levels themselves, and then the overworld and the inventory management and the mini games of picking items out of chests and collecting the cards at the end of the levels.
Yeah.
It's cool how they expanded so much on the game.
Yeah, it's this game is not short in giving out extra lives. I mean, there's always
they're really generous.
there's so many like games and setups and things that you can do. I mean, you can get them inside. Well, let's sort of like go through that and name sort of the ways you can get them inside the levels, right? With the green mushrooms. You've got the sort of the matching game as you exit every level, right? The block. You can do that. There is.
Do you have to match them to get lives?
You
I think you
you
get
get
more.
more.
if you match
Right.
them.
And also, that is one thing that I must have played this game a lot when I was a kid, because I have perfected the skill of just running full blast and knowing exactly when to jump to get a star every time.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think once you learn that, you'll really rack up the extra lives.
Yeah. Let's see the other ways. There's the matching game that you mentioned.
There's a like slot.
Like the slot machine, kind of sideways slot machine kind of thing, right?
That game is impossible for me. I can't do that.
Yeah, I didn't get a single one on my playthrough.
That's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah. What are some other ways? There's more.
You can get 100 coins.
That's right. 100.
Oh yeah.
You can in the matching game that we were talking about earlier. There's one-ups you can get in there. If you do I posted a picture of how to do the turtle bouncing trick. Like if you bounce on an enemy so many times without touching the ground, it eventually racks up 1-ups for you.
Okay. Yep. And you can do that with like the raccoon tail, right? Because you can kind of float and use that to slow yourself down. And as long as you stay airborne and keep jumping off one to the next, you keep accumulating points.
It doesn't even have to be airborne. You just can't touch the ground. So if you're somehow racking up points by standing on a block, you'll also it'll also give you 1-ups eventually.
Okay. So a different type of turtle tapping, if you will, from the original game.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah.
Is that something new to
no,
Super Mario Bros. 3?
That was in the first one.
Oh, okay.
The turtle tapping was in the first one. Do you mean
it.
like the extra lives, like the availability of extra lives?
No, but just like chaining up, jumping on enemies.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
No, you could do it in the first one.
Okay.
It was a lot harder in the first one. I think.
Oh yeah. Enemies, I think, were a little further spread out, and you couldn't like float like you can on this game if you have the raccoon tail, or the Tanuki suit. Is that correct? Is that the correct pronunciation for that? But I would say that Super Mario 3 was probably the first Mario game where you could get excessive extra lives without having to do any, without manipulating the game and doing any excessive tricks. Because I don't think that the turtle tapping that you do in the first game was actually something that was designed for the game. It was just something that, it was just kind of a secret everyone knew how to do, right? I would say it's kind of almost I don't know. Would you call it like a glitch, or just like you could just kind of take advantage of that?
Yeah, more of an exploit than a glitch.
Right.
I would
There
say.
you go. That's the right word.
But I mean, the designers did allow that to happen, because each time you jumped on a turtle in the first game without touching the ground, you got more and more points until it eventually became a 1-up. So
right.
Somehow they had that in mind, but I don't know. Like in Mario 3, I think they designed a couple areas almost specifically to allow that, whereas in the first one, the areas that come about where you can do that don't seem to be designed so you can do that.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. That's right. Okay. All right. So, Steven, how about you? Any type of history with this game?
I don't know. I was very young when I had an NES as a kid. Like, I think when I was like 5 years old, I got a Super Nintendo, and then my parents gave away my NES, so my memories of those days are very vague. But I'm pretty sure I had this game because I remember, I think I had a cousin who was much older than me who wanted to trade his copy of Super Mario Bros. 3 for, I guess I had a copy of Double Dragon, which I think was somehow my brother's copy, which he doesn't even play games. He never has, so I don't know why. But I remember he was mad that I traded his copy of Double Dragon for Super Mario Bros. 3. But I actually don't remember playing this game at all as a kid on the NES. The only one I actually remember playing is the first one, which is probably the first video game I ever played, actually. I do remember playing it more on the All-Stars compilation on Super Nintendo.
Okay.
And I think the first time I ever beat the game was on the Game Boy Advance port. I think I picked that up not long after it came out, and I actually beat it on the Game Boy Advance. But don't really have a big history with this game. Not too much to say about it, really.
Okay.
So
how do you guys go ahead?
The Game Boy Advance version, when I have that too, but I think I've put all of maybe 5 minutes into it. But when I was looking it up, I guess there's an e-reader component to it that adds other levels. Do you guys know anything about that?
No, but that's
I never heard of it.
Cool.
Yeah, I remember that.
Tell me more.
Being a thing, but I never actually used it. So.
Yeah, I think I looked it up on eBay, and some of them had the e-reader game or something, and I, used Google and discovered it.
I'm glad that that Doug mentioned the design of this game, because I think it's great. It's like there's so much rhythm, everything just flows so well when you're in the levels.
Okay, well let's talk about the gameplay a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So the gameplay is like 2D platforming, just like the first game and the second game, and again, just gaming history that everybody knows. The actual Super Mario Brothers 2 was a game released in Japan. We know it as the Lost Levels. That was a lot like Super Mario Brothers 1, just much more difficult. So, but throughout the series, even with the Doki Doki Panic westernization, it's a 2D platformer with running and jumping, and that is still goes on in Super Mario 3 and Super Mario World that we're going to talk about. That's just what kind of games these are. But as with the earlier games, we have the power-ups we were talking about. We have pipes. We have different parts of the levels. So, I mean, Floyd, you brought it up. What were some of the things you liked about, like the platforming, going through different environments? What were you into as far as that?
Well, like earlier you said, like you've got so much muscle memory, just sort of going through the levels as fast as you can and always landing on a star card. And it feels like that's really doable in this game. Because at least to me, the Mario games have always felt like there's some sort of rhythm component. I don't know if anyone else can sort of back that up.
I think that's totally true. I have a hard time getting into platformers now, even old ones or new ones, and I think part of that is Nintendo did such a great job of having that nice rhythm. And allowing like difficult parts, but you could kind of skip over the difficult parts if you wanted, so you could kind of like create your own difficulty somewhat. So the game wasn't super easy or super hard. It was kind of within a certain range of how difficult you allowed it to be, and it just sort of made for a fun and pleasant trip through the game.
Yeah, like, because I think modern platformers or a lot of platformers after this are sort of more about lining up the jumps or lining up platforms so that you can do things a little more safely. Whereas this, it's like, as long as you're going at a steady pace and you're not like stopping, or I don't know how to put it. As long as you're maintaining like a steady rhythm and like you're not breaking any of the flow, you're always going to be fine.
Right. I think one of the huge components, and maybe what you're trying to touch on, Floyd, is that the power-ups can make you fly. And that doesn't happen in a lot of platformers. And like Doug was saying, it's not
even the flying. It's like playing fluidly, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of see what I'm sorry. I see what you're kind of saying, Floyd, and that
like it's I think it's hard to explain, but if you can show it off really easily, of course.
Right. It's sort of a feel. It's not really something you're going to really notice when you play the game or play Mario games for that matter. And I think I brought something up on the threads about, and I just kind of mentioned it. It just sort of popped in my head. I was like, I hold down the run button the entire time when I play Mario games. Does anyone else do that? And I thought, that was just something that I probably did, and I didn't realize it. And then I started seeing everyone respond to it. Oh, yeah, I do the same thing. Oh, yeah, I do the same thing. And so I think a lot of the game is, like you said, sort of based on rhythm, and probably the reason like we can kind of like do that, hold down that button, speed the game up, go faster, and there is a certain rhythm and sort of cadence to the game that allows you to run through it fast, and promotes that, if you will, almost.
like even if you're not holding the run button, it still has its own sort of cadence, as you put it.
There was some other podcast I was listening to a couple months ago, and what they were saying. So keep in mind, this is anecdotal evidence on anecdotal evidence, but they were saying that when talking about this game and other Mario games, that Miyamoto said that they put, maybe it wasn't Miyamoto, maybe I'm making that up, maybe it was somebody else at Nintendo, but anyways, the point was that when they got to a point where everyone on the design team thought they were more or less done with the game, they said, okay, let's work on it for another 6 months. And that 6 months was just polish on the game. So they would, polish the gameplay and polish how Mario jumped and how things responded and, what your timing was and all that sort of thing. So I'm guessing that's where a lot of the, good feeling and flow and rhythm comes from.
Yeah. And then that shows you that Mario is a special series, because they didn't allow that on a lot of games. A lot of things were rushed. We talked about Kid Icarus last January actually, and how rushed that game was to get out. And there are certain games that are good games, but if they were allowed that time to be polished, they would have been even better. Like this game.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few games outside of Nintendo and Rare and Konami that fall into like the second and third tier manufacturers on the NES that exemplify that. With poor platforming and just bad timing and weird jumps. Even like the Turtles game on the NES, which one is it? The first one. There's a couple jumps that are just awful, and they're just so difficult, and they're not even difficult in a fun way. They're just hard to be because they designed it poorly. So I don't think Mario has any of that.
Yeah, that's true. There's just the highest excellence of quality from first party Nintendo games for the most part for their whole existence since they've been making video games. That's why they have so many fans, and that's why their first party titles are second to none to most people, to some people, to a lot of people. But
I think.
But
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I
keep interrupting you. I feel bad.
No, it's all good. I actually just wanted to touch on the Super Mario All-Stars version. Has anybody ever, well, you guys, a couple of you said you have played it. Did you play it recently or compare the two? And I'm asking because I did. And when I was a kid, I remember playing Super Mario All-Stars a lot. Again, my memories are just kind of murky of this game in general, but I probably played it more on Super Nintendo, much like Steven was saying he did. And I'm just wondering if anybody else had a chance to kind of compare the two. How do you feel about the 16-bit graphics, or would you rather play on the 8-bit graphics? And what are your thoughts in general?
Yeah, I did go back and play the All-Stars version maybe a couple months ago. I played through it with a friend of mine, and that's the version we played. And when I played it earlier this month, I played it on the NES, and I didn't really directly compare them, so gameplay-wise, I can't really say if they feel different. Graphically, obviously the All-Stars version looks better, like on a technical level. I don't know, there's something about the original NES version, though, that really appeals to me, just the style of it. I can't really quite put my finger on it, but I don't know, I really like it.
I agree. I like the 8-bit version better, and I think it's kind of because of what we were talking about with the graphics and what Doug was saying with this was like near the end of the NES's life cycle kind of, and they were really pushing what they could do. And if you look at Super Mario Brothers 1 versus 3, you could see how far they smoothed out like just Mario's sprite, for example, and his running animations and his, like, when he stops and his, like, shoulders go up, and there are so many, it's so much more intricate and detailed. And I don't mind the 16-bit version, but it's just like a 16-bit spit shine on a game that was kind of more innovative in its 8-bit state. but that's just, I mean, either one is great to play.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just my 2 cents on it. I was just curious what y'all thought about that. But so yeah, we have like we said, some great graphics, but also some amazing music. I don't know. I mean, I think from both these games, Mario 3 and World, have some of the most iconic music, you know, besides the overworld theme of the first game, you know, like only second to that is the music of these games. So anybody got any opinions on the music, or?
It's good.
Yeah,
No, I agree.
I mean,
Composed by Koji Kondo.
Yeah, it's very memorable music. I mean, I think, as I've mentioned before, when I play a lot of games, excluding Mega Man 2, which, you know, I'm so in love with that music. But for a lot of games, a lot of music's not as memorable. But I think that even though I haven't put a significant amount of time into Super Mario 3 like a lot of other people have, I think that, you know, the music really stands out as something that I really enjoy about the game, and something that I can sort of conjure up in my head at any time, you know, even though I haven't put a lot into it. So I think that says a lot about a game.
Do you guys have any themes that sort of stand out to you?
The level, when you beat a level ending theme, the dun 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 dun, you know that.
Oh, of course.
You know,
of course.
and then the you know, the map, I think stands out a lot to me. But one of the things, the track that I like the most, even though I hate these levels, the airships. I really like the music for the airships.
Those are my favorite too.
Yeah,
it's very ominous and dangerous sounding.
Yeah,
that's good.
It's really well done. I hate the airships, but I do love the music in those games, in those levels. Excuse me.
I like the idea of those airships, where it's kind of like they're throwing everything at you.
Yeah,
like this is the real skill test.
Let's pull the lid off of this, Rich, because I think we kind of exhausted everything else we want to talk about. So I got to say, I wasn't loving this game for my playthrough and I thought I loved this game.
Yeah.
And I go through this a lot when I go back to retro games for the playthroughs. Listeners of the show have heard me say, like, I used to love the original Gradius and I just couldn't get my head around it this time. My reflexes are different, I guess, than when I was a kid. And like Doug was saying, I'm not playing the same. I don't own 6 games, and I'm playing the same one all summer and just mastering it.
Yeah.
So,
well, let me pause you right there and just for our listening audience,
sure.
and just say now I'm not gonna get this verbatim, but Shawn said, and I quote, maybe not verbatim. So I'm going to prove that Super Mario Brothers 3 is so much better than Super Mario Brothers World. I do remember you saying that before we...
No, I think you have that reversed.
I don't think so.
No. Wait a minute. I would have never said that.
You sure?
Because I set up this whole playthrough so I could just lavish praise and worship on Super Mario World.
Okay.
But we're not there yet. So
yeah. Well, I guess everyone's sort of talked about their history, so let me throw mine in the mix. And the reason I want to throw mine in the mix, it kind of explains probably the reason the way I feel about the game. And I'm not a big fan of the game, as if you've been listening to this podcast earlier, I think that's kind of what we started out with. But my history is this. I'll be 39 years old this month, and so I grew up on the Atari, moved to Nintendo, which was graphically just mind-blowing, moving from one to the next. I mean, if you can imagine being a kid and doing that. Love Super Mario Brothers, love the original game. The second game, I think I was in the same camp as a lot of people at the time. I think Nintendo was really trying to establish a series, but trying to do something different in the U.S. And you can see this in Super Mario Brothers 2, as well as Link's Awakening, not Link's Awakening, but the second game for the Nintendo, Zelda 2. And I think a lot of, I feel like a lot of Super Mario Brothers 3 And I was one of those people at the time who didn't care for Super Mario Brothers 2. I've since grown in appreciation for the game and really do like Super Mario Brothers 2. But you have to understand, when you've played the first game and then you're handed Super Mario Brothers 2, it's such a clash. It's such a difference in gameplay and to what you're used to seeing from such an A-list, mind-blowing title that really broke video gaming back in to the mainstream. That Mario Brothers 3 felt like Nintendo's chance at redemption. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Of course, yeah.
So there was a lot of expectation behind that. There was the movie The Wizard, which I saw in the theater. And I saw the game and was like, oh, we have to go get this. I couldn't afford it at the time. I couldn't get a copy of Super Mario Brothers 3. But my friend, whose parents owned a video store, had it, so I did get to play it as soon as it first came out. But I didn't get to put a lot of time into it. But what little time I did put into it, it did not recreate that experience for me that I had when I originally played the first game. And I feel like that's what I was looking for. It was very similar, and then it had some added nuances, but it just didn't feel the same. And I felt like the disappointment from 2 and then this redemptive moment that Nintendo was going for 3, I feel like they didn't bridge that gap for me. That gap from 1 to 3 and jumping over 2. I think they did for a lot of people, and that's why a lot of people love this game. And they put a lot of time and effort into making it something great. But I don't think that translated well for me. And even playing it in the new playthrough recently, I just don't enjoy playing the game. I don't. I don't know what it is. But it just doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't look right to me. And that's just my opinion. I know it's a great game. I know people love it. And I'm not telling people to, I'm not being one of these hipsters that's like, oh, I'm different from everyone else because I don't like Super Mario Brothers 3. I mean, I really just don't care for the game. I mean, that's, I'm just stating I guess an opinion on how I feel about the game, and kind of my experience behind it and why I feel the way I do about it,
Yeah, man, I think... Go ahead, Doug.
Oh, I've just been taking notes as he's been talking because I'm going to say the exact same thing about Super Mario World. So,
oh, come on. Well, Rich, I think what you're saying is totally fair, and I think the way you enunciate your thoughts, I don't think anybody could accuse you of trolling or being a hipster. I don't think it's revisionist history, and I don't think you're saying, some people just come out and say X game was never a good game and we were all stupid for liking it, and I know you're not doing that.
No, not at all. I think it's a good game. I just, it just doesn't click with me, and
yeah. And it's crazy because I feel like I thought I liked this game a lot, but trying to play it for this playthrough just tied me in knots. And the way I described it in our text messages was that it's just giving me the yips every time I play it, and I'm just dying over and over and getting frustrated. It was really weird. Yeah. Like I might have to try it again down the road because I don't think I ever had problems with this game. And the only thing I can put my finger on is that I played a lot of the other games before trying to play this one. And the more modern games have softer physics. Mm-hmm. And I've read up a little bit about this. When they made Mario Maker, even though you can use like Super Mario 1 physics or Super Mario 3 physics, they're actually not the exact physics. They softened everything because they decided that the older games were too hard for modern gamers. And I just got off playing New Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario 3D Land, which have very, I don't want to use the word floaty just as a buzzword because that's sometimes what it turns out to be. But I keep saying softer physics, but that's the only way I can think of to say it.
Yeah.
In Mario 3, Mario, he kind of drops like a dead weight. He slides when you try to stop him a lot. I found myself falling off of platforms and into pits constantly because I couldn't stop him in time. So I think that I kind of calibrated myself to play the modern games and then tried to go back and play Mario 3, and it just gave me the yips and I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So it was really strange.
Yeah, they definitely have a different feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I'm not alone in thinking that Super Mario 3 feels like slippery or like that Mario carries his forward momentum when you try to stop him.
So
Right.
When I'm listening to you guys talk on other podcasts that you guys do, one thing I always wonder is how you actually played this game. And since Super Mario 3 came out on several different platforms, could you guys run through what system and controller you were using for this?
Sure. I played mine on the original Retron, which is plays carts. It's not emulated, and it plays straight carts. And I played with the Nintendo Dog Bone controller, the original Dog Bone. So I got the same experience as I would have with the original Nintendo setup.
I started playing it on the Wii, the Virtual Console, with a actually the classic controller, but I was not finding that to my liking, so I played it on the Retron 5, both Super Mario All-Stars with the Super Nintendo controller and the NES cart with the regular block NES controller.
Yeah, I was on original hardware with the Brit controller, but I did try it out on my Retron 5 for a bit, just because, like you guys said, the game looked different, and I didn't see anything, but we've moved past the look of the game.
Yeah. Steven?
Yeah, I played on original NES and original Super Nintendo with the All-Stars with original controllers. So
Yeah, I played it on the original NES with original controller, and I have one of those. Not that it matters, the blinking light win mod thing done to it. Yeah, but I played it on my LCD or LED TV. Mm-hmm. Mine is fairly good about not having latency, but
yeah,
that was part of it too. So.
Yeah, I do. I have recognized some of that latency in some of the TVs, the newer TVs, especially playing on the Retron 5, and it can affect jumping and things like that. We were up in Connecticut. We ran through Mega Man 2, a bunch of us from RFGen, and the lag as we came from that trip, we had a phrase that was called "the lag is real." And we were definitely experiencing that because Mega Man 2 is a game that I can almost play blindfolded and fly through, but I was missing jumps, and it was, I definitely know what you mean as far as kind of getting an idea of what people were playing with and why you asked that question.
Yeah, I just want to add that I was selling a couple of cartridges for Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World, and I put them in my Retron 5 just to test them, and they felt awful on the Retron. It's night and day.
Yeah. Some games do.
Yeah, for a game where you need like precision like this, it's not suited to the Retron.
Right.
Retron 5.
Right. RPGs are perfect, but more platformy games, I would say, you almost want to stay away from.
Mm-hmm. And so RTV, like I have CRTs too that I could have played this on, but our LED is fairly good. Like it has a mode for TV and a mode that's like the computer mode or something, and the computer mode supposedly eliminates nearly all of the lag.
Oh wow, okay.
But other TVs I don't think do that as well, so I think it's kind of hit and miss on the make and model of your television.
Yeah, I played on a CRT, so yeah. All right. Well, cool.
Nice. So before we move on to World, does anybody have any final thoughts on Super Mario Brothers 3? Anything we forgot or highlights or lowlights?
I did want to ask.
I
wanted to ask Doug about the secret white mushroom houses and the white airships, because I've never actually seen those in the game. I was just kind of curious what they are and how you find them.
So the white mushroom house is more difficult to get. There is, I think it works out that there's one one level in each world, and maybe not World 8, I'm not sure, where you have to get a certain amount of coins, and then the white mushroom house appears. And it's almost always one of the levels that auto-scrolls. It might always be a level that auto-scrolls. So it's pretty difficult. In World 1, it's level 4, and you have to get... I've got it right here in front of me, because I have that playthrough guide. You have to get 44 coins for that. And that's probably one of the easier levels to do it in, but it's still somewhat difficult. Getting the ship is easier, and it's actually pretty easy. I'd have to flip through my book to see exactly what the rules are, but it happens in odd numbered worlds, so 1, 3, 5, 7, and you have to get a number of coins that's like 11, 22, or maybe it's odd ones, maybe like 11, 33, 55, and then you have to have the 10 digits of your score match up to that, and then you have to stop the timer on an even number. So that sounds like a complicated thing, but it's actually a lot easier than getting the white mushroom house. And then the airship appears, and then they just appear somewhere on the map. So it might not be somewhere where you can get to immediately, but somewhere where you can get to eventually.
And so, like, what do you get? Like, if you go into like the white mushroom house, is it just like a regular mushroom house, or is there like a special item?
They each have one treasure chest, and they either have a P-wing or an inker. And the inker, if you get to an airship and you die on the level and the airship flies away, well, if you had used an inker, the airship can't move. Okay. So it just stays in one spot. So it's not really super useful. But there are some maps where you can skip over levels, and the airship could go hide behind a level, so you could, keep the airship from going somewhere where you can't get to without fighting another level.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I've never seen those, and I just, when you posted all your pictures, I know you posted a picture of the airship, and I'm not sure if there was a mushroom house, but I've never seen those, so I was just curious about that.
Yeah, the airship just gives you a whole bunch of coins, and then maybe there's one up, so maybe you can get 3 ups because there's, well over 100 coins, and then maybe there's a 1 up at the end of the airship or something.
Okay, cool.
Very good. Some cool secrets. I actually forgot about all that stuff, but I don't know if I ever got them, but I know that probably some kids on the schoolyard would talk about the ghost ships or whatever.
Were some of the items that were used in this game, were they used in future games? I mean, I know like there's like the Hammer Brothers suit, these special items, the boot that you hop around in, and I know you can do these things on Mario Maker, but the Tanuki suit, the frog suit, were there other games that these items were used in, or were they exclusive to Mario 3?
In 3D Land, you have the raccoon tail. Same. Right. You can't like run and float with it. It just provides you with that like
swiping ability.
The swiping ability and the drifting down slowly ability, but there's no like propulsive flight ability like in Super Mario 3.
I see.
So, and there's others, but that's the one that sticks out to me the most.
Yeah, I wonder why they abandoned some of those.
Yeah, the shoe is so fun. There's only one level in the whole game where you can get the shoe, and that's just such a great item. And then like when you get the Hammer Brothers suit, that's also a rare item, and it's mostly much later in the game, like worlds 6 and 7, I think. And I always end up saving those and not using them because they're so valuable. But then I end up playing through the whole game, and they're still in my inventory because I don't want to use them.
You can't take them with you.
Yeah.
All right, so I think if anything else comes up about Mario 3, we're going to be comparing 3 and World anyway, but let's bring World into the conversation. This is the follow-up to Super Mario Bros. 3, but this is now for the Super Nintendo. This is a 16-bit console. It's a massive upgrade over the Nintendo Entertainment System. So World launched in August of 1991 in North America. It ended up being a pack-in title for the Super Nintendo. That's how I got mine. And unlike Super Mario Bros. 3, this game I have a ton of nostalgia. And let me just throw out there, it was developed by the same team as Super Mario Bros. 3, Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka, with, again, Koji Kondo doing music. And unlike Mario 3, with World, the music is like part of my life. The overworld music was the ringtone on my phone for a very long time. So it's funny, my wife will she's been walking in the room while I'm playing Mario World and is that your phone? No, you changed your ringtone 2 years ago. Every time I hear it, I think it's your phone still. So it's kind of funny. But
are you why don't you just go back to playing Jaws Unleashed?
No, first of all, I would never talk to my wife that way. But no, this game, if I could just start with my personal history, I remember the Super NES was something that I wanted for Christmas, and I ended up getting it. Whereas the NES was something that was my family's, and video games were kind of new in our world, let's just say. And I remember, in my mind, I talked my father into buying us an NES, and I distinctly remember going to Sears and buying it. But the Super Nintendo, I felt like it belonged to me. It was mine. My family was not really playing video games at the time. And I can still remember that the 3 games that I played on a constant basis were Super Mario World, Super Mario Kart, and Super Castlevania. And those are still 3 of my favorite Super Nintendo games and 3 of my favorite games of all time. And Super Mario World, unlike Super Mario 3, playing it again is just, it's like a warm hug, playing this game again. Everything is just so comfortable and familiar, and I'm barely to my own checkpoint that I just posted, which is the Forest of Illusion, because I'm so busy. I was just going to run through the game, but I can't help but unlocking every single secret because I know them all, and it's like muscle memory just to do, and I do it in crazy ways too. And I'm getting carried away here, but before we get into level design and the secrets and everything, how did you all get into this game? Is it from your past, or did you get into it now for the playthrough, or whoever wants to go?
What's particularly interesting in what you said was, and this is something funny about growing up. When we did, my parents did not want me to have a Super Nintendo. It was one of those cases where, well, you've already got a Nintendo. Why do you need another game system? And so I had to wait years later, of course, and not many, just a few years later to get one. But I find it funny now that video gaming is such a it's such a cultural thing now that it wasn't back then. That my kids, if they ask me for a game system for Christmas, I'm like, oh yeah, sure, let's do that.
Hell yeah.
Exactly. there's not going to be any argument from Dad. Mom might mom might have a few things to say, but all in all, I think that's a really cool thing and something that has very much changed culturally, and just something I wanted to point out real quick. My history comes from I was in junior high, which was, at the time, they do middle school now, but I was in junior high, which was 7th through 9th grade. And I remember I dated a girl in 9th grade, and they had a Super Nintendo at their house. What was cool about it is her mother was the one that played it all the time, and her mother was one of the best Super Mario World players that I've ever seen. and she was so awesome at it. And when I would go on dates, I would always want to go over to her house because I would want to play video games, which probably made me a horrible boyfriend. But that's one of the distinct things I remember about the game, and I would just watch her do, just secret things in the game that I'd never seen before, like the multiple ways out, the ghost house battle where you actually fight the giant boo, and Star World. I'd never seen that before. I was like, whoa, where did this come from? So that's one of the things I really, really like about the game is the diversity of the game, the amount of secrets in the game. It's just one of the reasons I think it's so fantastic. But anyway, that's my history.
Anybody else grow up with this game, or everybody just jumped in for the playthrough this month?
I did have this game because, like we said, it was a pack-in with the Super Nintendo, and like I mentioned before, I think I was 5 years old when I got mine, and I remember playing it a good bit. I'm pretty sure I never beat it when I was a kid. I actually think the first time I beat it was for this playthrough.
Wow.
I think as far as I have gotten, as I was a kid, was maybe the Force of Illusion, maybe a little bit past that, I'm not sure, but yeah, I actually played it for this playthrough with a friend of mine. We co-opted, and we did most everything. I think there's like 96 exits, and I think we got 95. We're not sure where that last one is, but
I was thinking about that, Steven. I think like with the Star World, like there's secret exits in the Star World, but I think you have to do the regular exits as well. So maybe you just missed one.
I don't know. I think we connected all those, but
wow.
I mean, I'm
whether
really
you connect
sure.
them or not, there's two different exits for each level.
But
one that won't give you.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. You could be right, but as far as I'm concerned, it's we completed it. So, but it was actually funny. My friend, he actually was the one who beat the game. Like he beat Bowser, so I technically didn't do it, but anyway, it was the first time I actually had beaten the game, so it was cool to finally knock this one off the list.
Though not
cool,
technically.
Floyd.
Wait,
what?
Though not technically.
Oh, right.
He knows which of the two of us is the better one between me and my friend. So,
Right. I'm still calling shenanigans.
If he can do it, I
got to get an edge
better.
over you any way I can. I'm gonna call it shenanigans.
Well, I know I didn't have this game, so I must have played it at a friend's house. And so I kind of only just dabbled in it, and a few levels here, a few levels there. So I don't have a lot of personal history with this game, but it does feel like I don't know why, but it kind of I can relate to that warm hug comment that Shawn made. There's something really, I don't know, really fun and pleasant and happy about coming back to this game, and actually really playing it for real this time is really fun.
Yeah, I think my comment on Twitter was just I posted a photo when I beat the game and just put just like riding a bike. I mean, it just
Yeah.
I mean, it feels natural. Everything feels right, and I didn't have any problems. I remembered where the different exits were, and it was I didn't have any problems whatsoever.
All right, now Doug, lay it on. Bring the pain, Doug. Lay it on us.
So, Super Mario World is a game I always think I should like. I think I should love this game because in my mind, from looking at it and the bits I've played, that it seems like it's just a Super Mario 3 +1, or it's that plus all the extra fun stuff that they could add when they had the new console. But we didn't buy a Super Nintendo when it came out. I think this was actually one of the first systems I got when I was older and collecting older systems. But we rented this, so this is actually the only game console I remember renting as a kid.
Wow.
You could go to we had a pharmacy in town that rented consoles
Wow.
and games. And
I remember
That is
renting
really
consoles and games, but wow, pharmacy.
the funny thing is, so my cousin works at that pharmacy now, and I asked her I said, when I was a kid, they had all these video game things. Like, do they still have some of that stuff?
Wow.
And she says, oh, I think just like a couple of years ago, they got rid of it all.
Oh,
In the dumpster, probably.
Yeah. So, but
that's a shame, man.
But Super Mario World, I've tried to get into a few times, and I'm still working on it. It's kind of, I get into it, and I'm kind of like, I've played Mario before, and
Yeah.
this is just more Mario, and I just want to play the Mario I'm used to. So
Yeah. Do you think your love for Mario 3 maybe clouds your enjoyment? Like for me, like my disappointment in Mario 2 probably clouded a bit my enjoyment for 3. Do you think that 3, how much you love that game clouded,
Oh, yeah,
for Mario
I'm
World?
sure.
Yeah.
And part of it too is, when you have Mario, like ever since we've gotten our NES, I've had it hooked up, continuously. So it's always been right there for me to play.
Right.
And like I had said when, playing through Mario 3, like I was looking for the cart and I ended up finding it in the NES because it was the last NES game I had played. So it's always been there and present. Whereas Super Mario World, I didn't get until a few years, maybe 8 or 10 years after it had came out.
Right.
I mean, we had rented it and I had played it elsewhere briefly, but, when the one thing you think is so great is present and the other thing isn't, in the forefront of your mind.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's sort of a big thing that I think a lot of people who like, who are gamers just don't understand. I think a lot of people's perspective in as far as what they like and what they don't like has a lot to do with their situation. A lot of times when they came into something, is we've clearly pointed out in our, varying opinions in both games. So I think that, you can't say someone's wrong, someone's right. I think it has to do with the time when you played it, what else was going on, and it's a personal thing. I think gaming and video games are very personal, and for that reason, I try not to be very critical of what other people like. When that person is opening up the Game Boy cabinet and saying, "We've got the best games here. We've got the best games here, so you should look through this cabinet." And I'm like, "Oh, really? What are they?" And they're like, "Oh, Pokemon, red, yellow, and blue." And I'm just kind of like, eh. But I mean, and that's just me. It's when I grew up. I had aged out of that part of my life. But if you look at anyone's top 10 list, those are going to be on there. And I respect that, and that's fine. But I think again, it's a personal thing. It's when you grew up, when you played something for the first time. Like you said, you had only rented the console, you didn't own the console, and it's just different life experiences with a lot of things, not just video gaming, things in life, right?
Yeah. So I've been kind of curious. Do you guys find it easy to get into platformers that are, similar to Mario in some platformy way nowadays? Like, so there's platformers that come out, that are current games. How easy do you find it is to get into those games?
They still make platformers these days? I thought everything was third-person shooters.
What ones are there?
So the only one I can think of that I've liked, and most people might not even think of this as a platform, is Trials HD. It's the dirt bike motorcycle game where you can flip off ramps and.
Oh, I have that actually. Yeah. I got a recommendation. That's like that's a collection on the 360, right? I think Limbo's on that, and Trials, and I can't remember the other game. I'm trying to look at it right now.
Missplosion Man is on that. I have that disc too. Yeah. That's a good compilation.
Yeah, I was recommended that, so I picked it up.
And then there's been some like similar games that are obviously taking that into account. Like there's I can't remember what it's called. I have one on Steam that's a similar sort of game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of them like I guess like games like Super Meat Boy, and then like I would say maybe even Axiom Verge has a lot of platforming elements to it.
What about like there's like 10-Second Ninja?
I haven't played that.
Oh,
never even heard of that.
One.
Oh, really? Oh, so it's you get 10 seconds per level, and it just has tons of levels. And, I'm sure someone listening to this will know about that game, but it's all meant to be like, just super quick. And I mean, obviously you get 10 seconds per level, but most levels are one screen or just very simple numbers of screens. And you just go through it super quickly and hit each pixel perfect jump as often as you can and hope it works out. But yeah, I think it's similar to Super Meat Boy.
Yeah.
So I think it's accurate. I think it's accurate to say Super Meat Boy and the Mario games are similar, because they both really heavily rely on getting into a groove
And precision.
Yeah, precision.
Doug, you seem to know a lot more about current platforming titles. So, well, I just wanted to turn the question on you. Do you feel that you're kind of chasing? I know you don't like Mario World, but maybe a Super Mario 3 kind of feel. I mean, a lot of these games are going for nostalgia with their graphics and mechanics. Do you feel like you're being satisfied in that way with what's out there now?
Well, so I was actually hoping that some of you were into current platformers, so you could let me know.
If you've listened to the show or heard me talk on the forums, you should know better than to think that of me.
I've played very few, so like other than the ones I've mentioned, we got my nephew a 2DS a year ago, and he finally came up to visit, and I had gotten him the new Super Mario Brothers 2. The very awkwardly named game. And I played that for a little bit, which was, it plays very Mario-like, and it's actually pretty easy. Earlier, you guys were talking about how easy it was to get new Marios in Mario 3, but new Super Mario Brothers 2, it's just... I played it for a few minutes, and I had 22-something Marios, and I had never played the game before. And, that's. I think we've exhausted my list of new platformers that I've played now. I just haven't found very many that I've gotten into.
Right.
Well, I think the only new platformers that I've played are Metrico on the Vita, and that is more about solving puzzles and kind of like aligning platforms to get from point A to point B. And then Fez on Steam. And that's I don't know, that's not really, I guess it's a platformer because you do have to jump and land on platform, but I don't know, it's nothing like a Mario game.
Yeah. Well, I think Mario 64 probably changed the way we thought about platforming. When you introduce 3D, I mean, it completely changes the way you feel about, is this a platforming game? Is this not a platforming game?
That's fair.
I don't know. I mean, that's how I feel. I mean, I'm not a Mario 64 fan, and it doesn't feel platforming to me. It feels like I'm doing so much to change or adjust my angles and my camera that I'm not. It doesn't flow like older, more retro things that we call platformers do. Just a personal feeling about that. But anyway.
And I think bringing it into the 3D realm changes everything about platformers.
Absolutely, especially flow that you were talking about.
Yeah, it's a whole different flow. It's sort of like you lining up with the level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in Super Mario World, they did change up a lot of the power-ups, and they had something that was similar to the raccoon tail, but maybe a little slightly more challenging to use, which was the feather, which gives you the cape.
Yeah.
It's very similar in that it gives you the, forward propulsion that can make you run that I was talking about earlier. Or to fly, rather. You run and then fly, but you have to do this kind of rocking forward and back on the D-pad to make Mario like kind of scoop, and he's slowly losing altitude, but if you're good at it, you can really make him fly very far.
Fly through the whole level. Yeah.
A lot of levels you can really just fly through the whole thing.
If you do it right, you can maintain your altitude without falling at all.
Yeah.
And I was actually never able to do this very well as a kid, but during this playthrough, I pretty much mastered it.
Yeah.
So, and you could just fly
That's
through
awesome.
an entire level if you wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember I used to be very good at that. I think that's one of the things that I'm not quite great at. But one thing I do pride myself on is being able to take off and fly with very small runways, so to speak. Just kind of running back and forth and knowing to jump right at the last second as soon as, because you only gain your momentum until you turn around. But I have done... There are ways that you can get to secrets in levels just by doing that, where you should have to set off a switch palace and get the blocks set up to jump on.
Yeah.
But there are some levels that if you really finagle the flight of the cape right, you can shoot straight up into the area you need to get the key to open the keyhole, which is how you find the secret exits to the levels.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm maybe back up a little bit. So Mario World has an overworld map similar to Mario 3, except that it is just one world, which to me is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just going like a green world, then a desert world, then a water, then lava. It's an entire world where you certainly do find those environments, but it's one cohesive map, and I always thought that was awesome. I don't know if you guys have any comment on that, if you prefer it this way or you rather have your segmented, like, you know, World 1, World 2, or because they went back to like doing World 1, World 2 kind of thing in New Super Mario Brothers and in Super Mario 3D Land and so on. So
No, I know what you're saying. I do. I like the overall sort of projected map. I think that's nice. I think it makes the experience feel more cohesive, if you will. Having all that out in the open together, and you know, as you move and you find these secrets like these, you know, like the warp tunnels secrets, and the because it's not really warping, but it's like you can find these like tubes. And then you've also got sort of the Star Road, which acts as somewhat of a warp as well. You can make it all the way to the, you know, closer to the end with the Star Road.
Yeah, I really like the way it was done in World, just having one large cohesive world, and it's you know, it's like we said, it's a concept that was introduced in 3, and I just feel like it was built upon and improved in World. And like Rich said, you know, you can jump in a warp pipe like towards the end of the game, and it can bring you back up somewhere relatively early in the game. And it's just kind of cool seeing where you're going to pop up, and it's because it's just one world. You know, it's not like these 8 distinct worlds like it is in 3. But yeah, I like it.
Well, how about the I think something that kind of showed up in this game for the first time, and something we get in later Mario games, which I really like, are the ghost houses. The ghost kind of become their own sort of presence in this game, and I think that's kind of neat. Have a lot of fun in the ghost houses. And of course, you know, if you're looking at them, they'll stop, but if you turn your back to them, they'll come at you, which is kind of a neat mechanic, and you know, something I always found was a lot of fun.
yeah, the ghost houses are very unique in that they have those ghost enemies, and also that a lot of them are puzzles to even get out of the normal exit of a ghost house. You have to carry P-switches through doors and repeat, and then you have to sometimes carry P-switches and go up vines, and there's all kinds
Sometimes
of crazy
you gotta
stuff.
fly to get to those places.
Yeah, exactly. Ghost houses are really cool. And the music, again, it's interesting. The music was again composed by Koji Kondo, who did Super Mario Brothers 3 as well. But Super Mario World is kind of cool because most of the music is a variation on the same tune. If you, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's all dun 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 dun. If the overworld, the underwater levels, the underground levels, they're all different variations of that melody, and it really makes everything more cohesive as a world. I think that's one of the reasons I've always loved that music. and it's still like, again, it was my cell phone ringtone for a very long time. But I don't know if any of you guys feel the same. Like where in the music in Mario 3, I liked it a lot, but I don't have any like passion for it. I don't have anything I can say about it other than it's good music for a video game. It's iconic and everything else. But I think with World, it just, maybe it's the nostalgia speaking, but I still can't get enough of that music.
No.
Nobody likes music. Okay, so.
No. I was just waiting for someone else to talk. No, I like the music as well. I think it's really well done. It's memorable. Again, it's, something that I could kind of pick out in my head at any point. Unlike Super Mario Brothers 3, it's because I've put so much time into the game and played so much of the game that it's memorable for me. But with that said, it's great music, and it's something I really enjoy listening to. But I'd never put it together like you did, that it was part of sort of the same melody. Even though the castles are a little different, right? I mean, that melody's different. It's the dun dun
yeah,
dun 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 dun.
Yeah, there are exceptions to that,
Sure.
but in general, it's variations of the same theme.
Right.
But you're right. It's not 100% throughout the game, but yeah.
I'm just glad we're back in castles. We're not having to go to damn airships anymore. Just be honest. Jeez.
That's true.
It's just nice. It's nice to have a platforming level.
This.
Yeah, it's nice to have a. What did you say?
I said 3 has castles too. We covered this.
Yeah, I know, but it's not the same. It's not the same. It's not the same.
Oh Lord.
Jeez, you know what I'm saying.
So the other major thing in Super Mario World is Yoshi being introduced as a character and a gameplay mechanic. And I have a coworker, a friend of mine. I told her I'd give her a shout out on the show today. Her name's Erin Sky. She's I'll just say check her out on Twitter and Instagram. She's at Erin Sky XO. I told her I'd give her a shout out. I asked her what was her favorite thing about this game, because she was kind of psyched to hear that we were talking about it, and she said Yoshi. Yeah. And I think this is such a major upgrade that it's in, like, Yoshi is in Super Mario World as a mechanic, mm-hmm. and not repeated again. It's almost like the inventory system in Mario 3. It was just kind of left behind. It was a great idea for that game and was kind of left behind.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about Yoshi? And we can talk about different colors of Yoshi. I posted on Twitter, red Yoshi is the best Yoshi because he breathes fireballs no matter what color.
What you eat.
No matter what color shell you got. So I don't know. I think Yoshi's a big part of why I like the game as well. So I don't know. How do you feel about Yoshi?
It's fun. It's got that sort of cutesy element to it as well, like you said. Yoshi did appear in the on the NES before, being on the Super Nintendo. Though I'm not.
Mario is missing, or
I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure because I don't know, and I could be wrong about this. I don't know the release dates, but you had games like there were 2 games on the Nintendo, Yoshi's Cookies and
oh, that's right.
What was the other? It might have just been Yoshi.
I think it was just called Yoshi.
Yeah. They were like puzzle games, right?
2 puzzle games,
so,
right.
It's nice to see this character and sort of the integration of this character into this game. Unless I'm completely wrong, and those 2 games were released at a later part of the life of the Nintendo, but that's something we'll have to fact check.
But either way, there's so many things you can do that. Okay, first of all, when we were before we even started playing these games, I think I texted you guys, the percussion changes when you're riding Yoshi. Like, how cool is that? The music changes when you're on Yoshi, and it gives like a low end to the percussion when you're riding him. It's so cool. Yeah. And also, we all know about the sacrificing Yoshi or whatever, because you can get if you're about to fall down a pit, you can jump off Yoshi and you lose Yoshi, and that's kind of a joke about the game.
And there's a part of the game where that gets you to the next level on the lower long bridge. If you do that and if you float down with the cape on Yoshi and you go below the flagpole and you pop off of him to jump behind the flagpole, it takes you to a new flagpole, and that's the way to
Right.
open up that level, which is cool. So yeah, I
Right.
do I like Yoshi. I think it's a great addition to the game. Like you said, it's a lot of fun. It's neat. It's strange though. You punch him in the back of the head. You just donkey punch the guy, and he spits his tongue out.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird, but at the same time, yeah, it's kind of a fun addition to the game. It allows you to conserve lives.
It changes the way you play
too.
the game too.
Yeah,
it changes the way you play the game.
Sure. You can be a little more reckless,
Yeah.
Yoshi,
Doug, anything about Yoshi? Yeah.
Yoshi's always one of the things that I think should really draw me into Super Mario World, because it's something that's not present in the other games.
Yeah.
Or the previous games anyways, so much. And I think I should, it's another way to explore levels is to play as Yoshi. And that's one thing, that's always been fun about the Mario games is you can play through the levels differently. You can, fly through them as fast as you can, or you can, try to get as many points as you can, or you can, try to get to the different areas or go down different pipes, or, play through as Little Mario, play through as, Raccoon Mario or whatever. So, Yoshi should be, something that draws you into the game. I think it's a good addition to the series.
Yeah, that coward won't go in a ghost house, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, I'll be right here.
See you later.
I still think that's so cute though. That it's almost like a little cutscene. You pull up and jump off
And just bouncing up and down.
That's adorable. Come on. But yeah, so that. No, I forgot what I was going to say. So we have those. We have Yoshi. We have our new power ups. We also. Oh, I remember what I was going to say now. So we have like Super Mario Brothers 3. I'm going to admit totally that was the more innovative title that every Mario game since then has basically been almost like a carbon copy of Mario 3 in a lot of ways. Not in every single way, but in a lot of ways. But Super Mario World, even though it was just iterating on Mario 3 in a lot of ways, did add some things that we still see in games. And what I'm thinking about specifically is collectibles besides just the coins. And I'm talking even more specifically about the dinosaur coins, which there are 5 in every level. And they're not required in any way the way they are now, like in Super Mario 3D Land, and there's a lot of other games where you have to find the stars. You have to find 3 stars to unlock and progress and everything. They're not quite of that significance in Super Mario World, but those dinosaur coins, they're fun to hunt for if you want to find all 5, and you get a 1-up for that.
Yeah.
And I'm actually kind of curious. We know that Steven is a big collector when he plays games. Were you looking? I mean, you were trying to 100% this game. Were you trying to get all 5 dinosaur coins in every level, or did you just kind of breeze by them because they don't have any real significance?
I mean, if I saw one, I would go for it, but I wouldn't scour through the level, making sure I track them all down. It just, like you said, there's just not enough significance to really warrant that. So.
Yeah.
And the game doesn't really track them in any way. Like, even if you go back to the level, it doesn't say like you've collected all the dragon coins. It's just
Exactly.
there's no real significance
It's very
to tracking them all down.
Yeah, a very minimalistic sort of achievement, if you will. But like you said, it doesn't track it.
Maybe if it was part of the Assassin's Creed series, they would track every single one that you got.
Yeah, and you'll be climbing up watchtowers to find.
Somebody make an Assassin's
Goombas.
Creed with Mario. Make that happen.
So another thing I want to touch on is the boss battles. We talked about the Koopa Kids being introduced in Mario 3, and we didn't really touch on the boss battles. So we could probably just lump them all together because you're again in World you're fighting the Koopa Kids again.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more creativity in the boss battles, if I dare say, but I would also say that the boss battles are so easy in Super Mario World that I can understand why World gets a little bit of a bad rap for being much easier than its predecessors.
Absolutely. And the boss battles are repetitive. Each boss battle, I think you do, maybe not each one. I think there's one you don't do twice, but most of them you sort of do twice. They might add like an extra fireball that bounces around the room, or the room might tighten up quicker, or
right.
But you know, there's not a whole lot of variation. You got the sub boss battles too with the Reznor, which is the Triceratops that go around on the wheel, and that's the same each time. So you know, one of the things that other than Bowser, there's not a whole lot of variation in the boss battles as you go through the game, and that's a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't think either of these games do boss battles particularly well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I guess World is a little bit of a step up. It's a little more variety. Like the ones in 3 are very repetitive. But yeah, I almost wish the boss fights weren't there at all, honestly. Just because I feel like they kind of take the pace of the game. Like we talked about, like the fluidity of these games, and it kind of grinds that to a halt. But yeah, I just not a big fan of the boss fights in these games.
I mean, if you took them away, it would cease to be a Mario game, wouldn't it? I mean, that's something that, well, I mean, it's something that's in every Mario game, isn't it? I mean, the first one, second one, the third one. I mean, it would almost cease to be a Mario game. I mean, I think that's, I guess for a lot of people, that's sort of like a mini achievement that you play in the game that makes you want to play more of the game. That's how I always felt about them anyway. I mean, it was always good. Oh, well, I beat Lenny Koopa, or, you know, whatever, you know, moving on, you know.
Yeah, and I think the boss battles in World particularly serve the purpose of delineating where the worlds would be in other games. Like how I said in Mario 3, you got distinct worlds that you go from world to world. But in this one, it's more, you feel like you're progressing when you take down a castle and take down one of the Koopa kids, because then you're going to move to an area that will be different from the area you were previously in, and it's usually marked by that boss battle. So it's a little bit more for progression, I would say, in World.
That's a really good point. And I don't think it breaks up the flow really yet. Like, it is a change of pace, but I don't know, it's almost like not a palate cleanser, but like it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air to be doing something just a little different. I mean, it still has a lot of the platforming elements, and a lot of the stuff that you did in the levels leading up to the castle are similar, but it's just different enough to be interesting.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
You guys got me. You got me thinking about the boss battles in Super Mario Brothers 2. Some of those are pretty fun, and I was trying to think what, like, if you were going to make a boss battle, I mean, what would you do that's different? And Super Mario Brothers 2 kind of has a different sort of take on it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, 2 has really good ones. You know, some really good ones that I can remember.
Yeah, like Mouser, and then
right, Mouser.
Yeah, I was thinking about Mouser.
I can't remember the Hydra's
particular
name, but I remember the Hydra, and then you've got the Birdos, who are kind of standard bosses.
Mm-hmm.
This is a real quick aside, but did you guys do what I do when you played against Birdo and just see how far the egg would take you when you jumped on and just ride it to the end of the screen or whatever?
Oh yeah,
yeah. There's one level in that game where you meet a Birdo like at the beginning of the level, and you actually have to ride the egg too.
Oh right, that's
somewhere
right.
else.
Yeah,
I think it's in a world that people would often warp past, but there is at least one level like that.
Yeah. So one of the things that you just brought up, Floyd, is the, like, you're always doing something different kind of thing, like a change of pace. And I think that's something that again, people praise Nintendo for this as far as a game design philosophy, is that they'll have mechanics in a level that you'll see it in one level and you'll never see it again. And I don't want to steal. This is something I honestly have heard Patrick Klepek talk a lot about. So I don't want to, this isn't an original thing that I noticed, but I've heard him talk about how in the Galaxy games in particular, there are mechanics that it'll just be something really cool and you do it in one level and then it's gone forever. And they could have made an entire game out of it. And in World, we do see some of that, a little bit of that. And what I'm thinking about in particular is like climbing the fences, and you're climbing around and you can punch the turtle if he's on the other side of the fence. And or the platforms with the switches that you can switch. Yeah. If the platforms when you jump up and hit the switch and it changes the track. Like there's all these like cool little things, or like the platforms that are spinning like a pinwheel. That's only in like one level, isn't it? There are like a bunch of these little nice little touches,
moving platforms like over the lava and stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. And there's all these, again, it kind of plays into the same thing, the little embellishments and attention to detail that we were talking about with Nintendo in general and their game design. But like how in this game you stomp on a turtle and he comes flying out of the shell and is walking around a little bit, or if there's like a fish out of water, like just these little cute little things. And I wonder, do you guys notice that? Do you have any like favorites, like little touches? There's all these like little things that like, oh, that's cute. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just me because I love this game so much. I don't know.
That's a good question. That's a tough one to answer. I think sort of on the fly, though. You know what I mean? I know what you mean. Yeah, no, and there are little touches, and I wish that was something I was thinking about as I was playing the game. But I think you're right. I mean, there definitely are certain areas and certain things that you do in the game that, they're only like these little nuances. Like you said, there'd be like a fish flopping around, and you don't even have to jump on it. You can just run up to it and knock it away. But, it's... Right. It's those like little touches that you kind of figure out. Like someone might be playing the game and they might jump over it to avoid it, thinking it's going to hurt them. But now, I'll play it and I'll just run through it because it's flopping around. It's just. Or
even like it just popped into my head, the animation of the feather after you knock a feather up out of a question mark block. It's a 2-frame animation, right? It's a feather on a 45-degree angle, and then the same thing inverted. Yeah. And just the way that is animated, going back and forth and slowly drifting down, is like a feather would, like a 16-bit feather would float to the ground. Like just the way they did it is perfect. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I guess one of the things for me that I like is the how you can get these like infant Yoshis that pop out of the egg sometime. You can grab them and run them around and.
Yes. Oh yeah, and you gotta feed them.
You gotta feed them to make them grow.
Yeah, that's fun. That's awesome. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I had a really funny... I'm glad you brought that up because I had a really funny moment. I don't know if this has ever happened to me, but I was in the first Star Road level where you get the red Yoshi at the very bottom. Yeah. And I was trying to get him to grow. I was carrying him around, and I had killed all the turtles, but I had a mushroom in my reserve. So I hit select, and the mushroom came down, and he ate it, and he grew up. That was the last thing I needed for him to eat. So I was like, yeah, I did. Like,
I didn't even know you could do that. That's great.
It was a weird strat, but I figured it out.
I've carried one around and eaten all the blocks and fallen through the bottom of the screen before on Star Road.
That's funny. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you guys are talking about like interesting things that happen. There was the 2 videos that got posted in the forum about the speed runs, and I don't know if you watched them or any other speed runs, but people often take advantage of glitches people know about, and often ones people don't know about. What do you think about the if you've seen some of the glitch runs or speed runs that people use for Super Mario World that take advantage of these interesting things?
For clarity, those 2 videos, I posted those were task runs that they just did. at GDQ.
Right.
And like I posted in the forum, I don't know like what's going on, especially in the world one. They used a major glitch that I've heard about it, and I still don't really understand it. But there are, I mean, do you have any other ones in mind from either game that
Is that the like zero exit or whatever they call it?
Yes, that's I believe that's what they were doing.
Yeah. I think when it was discovered, it was a tool assisted thing, right? Which is like writing up a computer program to basically play the game, from what I understand.
Right.
But no, I think at some point during last year, they discovered how to actually do it in person. I think you need 2 controllers to do it, but it's doable. It's insane, but it's apparently doable.
Yeah, that one that takes place in one of the first level or the second level, where they say you're actually writing to the code of the game. You're rewriting code and using overflow errors and that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's craziness.
I don't see how people have time to figure these things out. It's just insane.
I know they should be out, spending time scouring eBay and thrift shops for games rather than.
It's like, when we were younger, we only had a couple games, so you're gonna learn everything there is to learn about it, right?
Maybe so.
Yeah, and I think that mentality, coupled with being an adult, and a lot of these guys know about programming, that they, people get into the guts of old games now for various reasons, but a lot of them are discovering things like this by getting into the programming of the game and finding these exploits and skips and all these crazy things.
And that's cool to be so passionate about something that you want to break the heck out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's great when it's not something that I'm into so much. I'm aware of it, and I've seen a few of them, but I think it's great that people are excited about it and exploring old games in new ways and, being able to do these things.
Yeah, I think I got into watching those videos when we did Super Metroid, because I think someone posted something like, you have to see this, like how people exploit that game, which was just incredible, and it is interesting, like how much time people put into certain games. I could never do that. I don't know. I don't have the attention span to just focus on one game like that, like some people do. But it's quite amazing, and kudos for the people at Games Done Quick and what they do. It's amazing that they have created a charity for that, and it's just fascinating.
Yeah. So I think I've exhausted everything I want to say about both of these games, but I'll definitely open the floor to anything that anybody forgot or wants to bring up, or anything I forgot. Any parting thoughts for either game.
I'm glad that we've made it this long with having things to say about two, simple in quotes platformers.
That's a really good point. I mean, you saw my notes. There was not much to. I had a hard time writing notes for these games because it's like, what the hell are we?
What are you going to say?
Right.
Well, I think that's funny too, and I've noticed this in our podcast. Is one of the funny things is these games that we play that we're so familiar with, and other people are so familiar with. It's really hard to talk about them. Like when we played Parasite Eve, for instance, it's a game we'd never played before, and we could just kind of gush about it and talk about it, and there's so much unfamiliar territory. There's always plenty to talk about, and when you're so used to playing a game, and you play it, you've played it in the past so many times over and over again. It really makes it tough to come up with topics and things to talk about, because you want to talk about things that are interesting to other people, but these are things that most people have already pretty much experienced, right?
Right, and subconsciously we know that as we're talking.
Sure.
So there are so many things that you think kind of go without saying about these games. So yeah, That's why it's when we play a game like 50 Cent Blood on the Sand, we can like explain it and tell everybody like what's really
here's
cool
why
about
you should
it
play
kind of
this,
thing.
right? Oh, you've probably never heard about this. This is why you should play this. But with this, it's such familiar territory to so many people that it's hard to bring up something that's new or anything like that. We can just pretty much talk about our histories and the way we, sort of feel about games. But next month, I can say for sure, a lot of us are going to be playing a game that we've never played before, and we're going to have a lot to say about it. So,
that's true.
Yeah. So join us, please.
Yeah, Steven, can you give us a little preview of what we're playing in February for the
our
playthrough?
February playthrough is going to be Folklore, which is a PS3 exclusive. It's kind of an action RPG. You control a young girl named Ellen and a man named Keats, and you go into this sort of netherworld, realm of the dead kind of place where you can sort of defeat and capture these spirits of what they call folks in the game, and you can use those to sort of battle other creatures. And I've started playing it. It's really interesting. I really like the art style and the music, and I'm having a good time with it. So hope we get some people to check that one out.
Yep.
Very cool. Yeah, I've started it too. It's a pretty neat. It's definitely a neat game. And if anybody wants to join us, come to rfgeneration.com. It's free to sign up to have an account there if you don't already. Go to the community playthrough subforum where we already have a thread for Folklore, and that's where we have our discussion threads for all the games we play. And so I guess that about wraps it up. I just want to thank all you guys for being here, and thank you, Doug, for joining us and for sharing your thoughts and memories of these great games, and being on the air with us.
Yeah, thanks, Doug.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
And that'll wrap it up for another episode of the Playcast. Did our opinions enrage you or warm your heart? Log on to rfgeneration.com to tell us all about it and to join our future playthroughs. Speaking of future playthroughs, in February 2016, Steven is bringing us a hidden gem exclusive to the PlayStation 3 with the action role-playing game Folklore. Thank you as always for listening, and we'll see you next time on the RF Generation Playcast.